So as I explained, the topic for today is the project management, Aadhaar, a case study. So, so in a project management, what we look for? So basically, we talk about what is your project all about. So, as far as Aadhaar is concerned, it was a project wherein we had to give identity to 135 crore residents of the country, right? So, which is spread across the country in a remotest part and all. The second aspect of a project management is, does your project make sense for those who will be the user of that? So who are the users? User in case of Aadhaar are individuals resident and also the service provider, government and other private sector entities who will use Aadhaar or who are using Aadhaar. So whether your project, whatever you have conceived, makes sense to all those who are stakeholder of it, and who will determine your success or failure as a project. If you do something, so who are the stakeholders who will tell you that your project have been successful or your project has been failure? So there will always be certain number of distractor, but the majority of your stakeholders would say that yes, it is useful and it is a successful project. For example, if every resident has got an unique ID and they are able to use it for avail different services, or it comes as a handy to them, so it tells your success. Not only that, only the resident, but also the user agency like state government, banking sector, who are actually using the Aadhaar, so they will determine your success. So when you start your project, you must know that who are the stakeholder who are going to judge you about the success or failure of the project in Aadhaar. So although I mean there were many distractors in the sense that there were many civil society organizations who opposed Aadhaar, and even today they oppose it. So there will be distractor, but within that, how you come out of that and you make it success is what all project management is. Then how will you deliver your project, right? So for Aadhaar, like a project wherein you had to cover the entire country, so the question is that how, so I'll be talking about that in coming slides, that how you want to deliver that project. Is it, are you going to open offices all across the country and then enroll, or are you uh, uh, trying to create an ecosystem who will work for you in the field and all? What kind of central system will be having, how do you monitor your project and all, is that you have to look at how you're going to deliver your project and how you are going to engage your project team. So you'll be having a team who will be working on that project, so how to engage those project teams so that it happens. And then the next part is shift happens, that means there are certain risks, there may be certain delays. So how do you prepare for it in case of any change happening, whether you are already ready for that? Do you have plan A, plan B, plan C, etc. in place, which you can continue doing that in case any risk or any changes happen to your project? And then how to stay in control during the implementation. When I say this, I'm telling about that how to monitor your project, so that if there is a gap, there is a issue, you are able to identify and fix that. So how to stay in control, so I'll talk about that, how in Aadhaar we try to do that. And then how, once you have completed your project, how you are able to close the project in an orderly way, so that it is used by the stakeholders. And if there is continuity required, how you build that continuity. In case of Aadhaar, for example, once you have completed Aadhaar enrollment, now the authentication and the update process will continue. So how to, I mean, close your project in an orderly way, so that whatever is the continuity aspect continues and whatever has to be closed is to be closed. So for Aadhaar, it is a never ending project, in the sense that children will keep taking birth, so you have to enroll for them for Aadhaar and biometric update. And then every person, every after 5 years, suppose your photograph will change, so you have to update your photograph. Your biometric may also change, so that is also required to be changed. So that's what you have to manage. So the question today is, today we all of us know that the Aadhaar has been a successful project. So our question, which we'll try to answer during our presentation, that how did a complex mega project like Aadhaar which involved giving a unique ID to more than 1 billion people, in the sense that it's not something you can do online. You have to physically go to reach out to each and every individual so that you collect their biometric, collect their photograph, collect their demographic, then process it centrally, generate Aadhaar and deliver that Aadhaar copy of Aadhaar to those residents through the post, through online, and there are other means for that. And that too within the target date, whatever target was given, and that too within the budget. So this was what happened, and how it happens we'll talk about in the upcoming slides. So there are 5 aspects of the Aadhaar which was kind of so from the day one these concepts were taken into account while managing the project. That the first was by breaking down complex project goals. So for Aadhaar there was many aspect of this project. So the overall goal was, I mean, broken down into small pieces. For example, the first piece could be Aadhaar enrollment, the plain Aadhaar enrollment, that you reach out to every resident, enroll them, collect their biometrics, deduplicate, and generate the Aadhaar. So that would be the first kind of a layer of Aadhaar which would be executed. Once you have done that, then comes the authentication part, a plain yes/no authentication, that a person puts his finger onto a device and that biometric and Aadhaar comes to UID data center. UID data center matches with the original enrollment data. If it is matching, it says yes. If it is not matching, it says no. So the second layer of the project was building a authentication platform, creating an ecosystem outside UIDI so that they have reach to every resident who need authentication, and then the central system wherein those authentication will take place. If that goal is completed, then you have a third layer of eKYC, that in case you want to open, say, a bank account, then your banker requires proof of address, proof of ID, or if you want to open, say, take a mobile connection, then uh, the mobile operator requires a proof of ID and proof of address. So that comes as a electronic KYC from UIDI. So that's the third layer of eKYC. And then, of course, once you have completed Aadhaar enrollment, people would need to update their data, because somebody will get married, somebody will move out from one place to other place, so they will require address change, and there would be certain errors while enrollment, those need to be corrected. So there will be one layer wherein you have to provide a update feature or facility, and other than this there will be lot of other web-based services or app-based services, which was the another top layer or application layer. So Aadhaar was a platform, and then what about the user agency? Various user agency will be using the Aadhaar using these platforms which Aadhaar has actually made. So somebody want to say something? Okay, fine. So so how it was done? By keeping the objective simple. As I said, that you first go for Aadhaar enrollment, then for authentication, then for eKYC, and then for other services. And while doing so, you have to build momentum. For example, if you have to cover 120 billion, 120 crore or 130 crore residents, so if you start doing only few lakh Aadhaar enrollment a day, you will not be able to cover the entire population within the stipulated or the target time. So you have to build momentum. You have to create an ecosystem who does Aadhaar enrollment for you. That was very extensive work. So you have to create an ecosystem, enabling environment, so that uh, the team which you have engaged, the ecosystem which you have engaged, is able to scale up and do the enrollment. So that was a very tough task, that we scale it up Aadhaar enrollment operation in a way that we are able to do 20 lakh enrollment a day or more than that. At a particular time, we actually touching 20 lakh or 21 lakh Aadhaar enrollment a day. So that was a building a momentum through various enabling environment which got created. And the third aspect is how to garner stakeholder acceptance. So who are the stakeholders? So stakeholders were the state government, banking sector, etc., who would actually be using the Aadhaar. So unless you gain acceptance of those stakeholders, your project will not be successful. So during the initial days, our chairman Nandan Nilekani used to visit every state chief minister then DG R.S. Sarma. So we were visiting every chief secretary of the state so that he can create an acceptance. And there was a regional office headed by very, very senior IS officers at that point of time, and some other services officers who were liaising with the state government and other stakeholders so that a acceptance of the project is created. So once the stakeholders are able to accept your project, they will contribute. For example, state governments were also part of enrollment ecosystem. So they engage their departments, they engage their IT department, they engage their food and supply department to open Aadhaar enrollment center using their own resources and enroll people in their state. In addition to the bank who became Aadhaar enrollment agency and registrar, and post offices later become registrar. So all those ecosystem we have to garner acceptance of that, because they are not only the user. So one of the aspect was those who are user of Aadhaar were actually doing the enrollment. So that's why they will have kind of interest in doing them, because once they are able to enroll people in their state, they'll be able to use the Aadhaar authentication and Aadhaar services to deliver their own services. And then the next aspect was that whatever investment is made, it has to be outcome based. So by investing in project outcomes. So for example, I'll tell you one simple example in Aadhaar that uh, as I said that the entire work was being done by Aadhaar ecosystem. So every month we used to pay to the registrars based on how much Aadhaar got generated of the enrollment which they have actually enrolled. So every month we'll take out the data from our system and pay to those registrars. And we don't, I mean, so we never took invoices from them. So even without invoices, we paid to all our ecosystem partners in time, so that if they have a cash flow, they would be able to actually invest more into devices, more into hiring operators, and they can scale it up. So that is the way uh, UIDI invested into the project outcome, and it was success. So now let's go down into each component which I discussed. That the first layer was about Aadhaar enrollment. So whatever I'll talk about, I'll relate to it with the project management which was carried out. So the first aspect was, as I said, that when UID was formed in 2009, uh, so one of the aspect was how to enroll 135 crore residents. At that point of time, it was about 121 crore as per census. So one of the aspect was that let us create Aadhaar offices in every state, every district, every taluka, and then open Aadhaar enrollment center. That might take years together, maybe 10 years or 8 years or 9 years, to just open your offices, create infrastructure. The other alternative which was there with in front of Aadhaar team was that create an Aadhaar enrollment ecosystem. So those agencies or organizations who are already serving residents in some or other way. For example, state government are already offering many services, so they are already in, I mean, as a front office, they have a front office where they are dealing with the residents. There were banks who are already, I mean, offering banking services to the residents. The residents are coming. Post offices are already offering. So UIDI decided to adopt a ecosystem approach for Aadhaar enrollment uh, process. So they kind of engaged registrars. So who were registrars? Registrars were state government, banks, and other central agency like post offices. And then UIDI created an ecosystem of enrollment agency. We used to empanel enrollment agency based on certain process where we did a lot of innovation, and we were able to empanel hundreds of private agency as enrollment agency, and registrars were directly able to hire these agency to open enrollment center. The UIDA also created an ecosystem of operator wherein we had certifying agency where this operator will give the exam and pass the exam, and once they are ready, So now those enrollment agency can hire these operators. So UIDAI itself created an ecosystem wherein these operators will get trained and get certified. In addition to that, the devices which were used, the biometric devices, etc., used for enrollment center was also to be certified. So UIDAI and panel agency like STQC to kind of pre-certify those equipment so that enrollment agencies or the registrars are able to purchase those equipment from the market who are actually certified. So all these aspects were enabling environment was created by UIDAI. So as we see this, that the enrollment was decentralized. You had registrar, you had enrollment agency, and then you have enrollment centers. And most of these enrollment center initially were camp, in the sense that somebody will some operator supervisor will go to a say village area, open a camp for few days, enroll the people, then they move to the other camp and all. So initial enrollment was done in a camp environment. Later on, permanent enrollment center or Aadhaar Seva Kendra were open. So the enrollment was decentralized. But what was centralized is the centralized Aadhaar generation. So these fellows will use standard software and processes devised by UIDAI, and then once they are able to enroll, they will send the data securely to UIDAI data center. In fact, the standard software itself had a provision to upload the data securely to UIDAI data center, and using a certain encryption mechanism which cannot be broken. And in addition, there will be traceability of all the actors involved, in the sense that while this operator is doing enrollment, in addition to the demographic and biometric data which he captures of the resident, and also the document required for that, what else is captured is the audit data, which will include which device, make and model of the device, serial number of the device, when enrollment started, when enrollment ended, when he was capturing finger, how much time it took, start time, end time, when he was capturing facial image, how much time it took, how many facial images he took. So while you capture biometric, you may have n number of attempts. All attempts were saved along with the metadata, and that becomes part of the enrollment packet which is sent to the UIDAI data center. So UIDAI had traceability of all the actors through audit trail uh, inside the enrollment packet. And those audit trail data we used to, analyze that whether, so we were able to even analyze that how many operators are having good quality uh, uh, the devices which is creating a good quality image of the biometric, and how many operators or which operators are not using proper devices and their devices have become old. So we used to advise such agencies, such enrollment agency, that devices being used is not able to capture the biometric in a proper way. So because of the data which we are getting, so data became tool for UIDAI to monitor the entire project. As I said that for a large project, how to monitor the project. So one of the way is that you deploy your personnel across the country to supervise and monitor. Other way is that in addition to the supervision, which can be a kind of a sample basis, you can monitor it through the data. So the UIDAI most relied on the data which it was getting to monitor performance of the operator, and based on their performance, for example, if this operator enrollment is getting rejected, so we had a threshold that in a month, if X number of enrollment is rejected because of the quality reason done by this operator, so we used to blacklist this operator, and then he'll not be able to log in. The system was such that he'll not be able to log in into the system, and he'll not be able to enroll. So he becomes, he's thrown out of the ecosystem if he's not following the processes, if he's not following the quality standard. So this is how the entire project was managed, uh, as we had a large ecosystem, and it was not possible for UIDAI to place its own person at every enrollment center. So it was the data which came handy to manage the entire Aadhaar enrollment system. Now let us look at what are the different attributes which gets collected during Aadhaar enrollment. So the question before Aadhaar team when the process started was that what parameter or what attribute should be collected so that Aadhaar enrollment can be done and later on Aadhaar generation can be done. So there was a committee formed for this purpose, and there are a lot of uh, people from private sector, a lot of people from the very senior officers from the government sector, and what they found, I mean, the suggestion was that why don't you collect all such document like passport, ration card, etc. Why don't you collect blood group? Why don't you collect X and Y? Why don't you collect so many parameters were getting suggested? But at that point of time, if you recall, in 2006, a similar project in UK got kind of destroyed because they were collecting so many private information in a central system. So the learning from that was that it has to be very simplistic. We need to collect only the data actually required to generate an Aadhaar and use it for authentication later on. So what was decided that very bare minimum demographic will be connected. So what were those bare minimum demographic? It was name, it was address, it was gender, and it was date of birth. So minimum demographic information which is actually required to generate an Aadhaar, because every ID card will require these parameters. So only these parameters were getting collected. In addition, the biometric, of course, the 10 fingerprint, the 2 iris, your eye images, and the facial photograph. And why these biometrics were required? That UIDA had done a study, a POC, that how I can deduplicate the Aadhaar enrollment of more than 100 crore residents by comparing the biometrics. So the result was, if you only collect biometric in terms of fingerprint, your accuracy may be say 90%. If you also collect the iris image and club these biometrics for deduplication, your accuracy becomes 99.99. So it was decided on that study that we'll collect all the 10 fingerprint and both iris and we'll use it for deduplication or comparing with each other, so that one person gets only one Aadhaar and one Aadhaar is not given to two persons. So that was the main motive. So we at that point of time, Aadhaar team decided to collect 10 fingerprint and iris and also facial photograph, because every ID requires that. And later on we had thought that even the facial image based authentication or deduplication may be possible in future. So that was collected. Collection of mobile and email was optional because not many people will have mobile or email in the rural and remote areas. So this program was kind of inclusive. Every resident need to be enrolled for Aadhaar somehow. So that's why mobile and email was not mandatory, but it was a preferred, because once you have given your mobile, then you can use OTP based authentication. Email, you can receive so many notification and all. So residents were encouraged to give mobile and email, but it was not mandatory. Once this data gets collected, for example, I'll tell you one more thing, that prior to Aadhaar, every system, if you fill up a form for say even giving 10th exam or applying for PAN card at that point of time, so they will ask you a whole lot of data. They'll ask you your name, address, your caste, religion, uh, and so many things. I mean, entire Janam Kundli they will ask for, right? Whether that is of use or that is of not use, but they'll be asking. But in Aadhaar, it was made very simple to collect only the basic biometric and demographic data, which is actually required to generate Aadhaar. So once these are collected and sent to UIDA data center, there will be a 1:n match. When I say 1:n match, it means that, for example, suppose today I have 129 crore. So let us assume 125 crore people have already enrolled. That means Aadhaar database will have 125 into 10 fingerprint and into 2 iris. So if you enroll for Aadhaar today, one enrollment, that means you are giving 10 fingerprint and 2 iris. So these will be compared one by one with all these data. So to generate one Aadhaar, there will be whole lot of 16,000 crores matching transactions which is required. If you say multiply 125 crore into 12 into 2 into 12, so that is number of transaction you will get to actually deduplicate one Aadhaar, and once it is found unique, Aadhaar gets generated, and if it is not found unique, uh, Aadhaar, I mean the application gets rejected. The other aspect is that the privacy aspect. As I said, to protect the privacy of the citizens or the residents, the concept of minimal data collection, you'll heard everywhere, was deployed while designing the Aadhaar, and that's why Aadhaar never collected religion, caste, tribe, language, income, medical history, etc. So those data were never collected, whereas many of the committee members were of the view that if you collect, say, blood group and person, there is an accident of that person and somebody sees his ID and then he knows which blood group is to be given. So there are a lot of such stories or such requirement or demand coming. But if you add, suppose, blood group as one of the parameter, what will happen is in the rural area they will not know their blood group and they will be excluded. So Aadhaar enrollment itself will become impossible kind of a thing, and then your project will fail. So those benefit which you are trying to achieve will not be able to achieve. So that's why it was kept very minimal. So the one question was that whether Aadhaar has to be inclusive, that means everyone is to be I mean enrolled for Aadhaar, or for example in an EPIC card or a voter card only 18 plus residents are entitled to, because that is for the purpose of voting. It's a purpose based ID kind of. Similarly, driving license is given only to the adults. So, and the PAN cards are given to those who are required to file income tax, and passport normally is for travel. So when Aadhaar was being conceived, it was conceived that Aadhaar will be given to every, from birth to death. I mean, so wherever you are, you can enroll for Aadhaar. So even the infant enrollment uh, was possible in the Aadhaar system from the day one, wherein there was a certain different process to enroll infant, wherein the biometric of the parent is linked with the child Aadhaar and only the facial photograph is taken, because the children biometric will not be formed. But when the child attain an age of 5 years, his biometric is formed to some extent. So there is a mandatory process of biometric update. So children has to go to any Aadhaar enrollment center and update the biometrics. And again at the age of 15, when biometric is almost formed, a second biometric update took place. In addition to that, even the adult are advised to undergo biometric update whenever they face authentication problem, or say every 10 years they can do it. So that's an optional, but that's an advisory, not compulsory, whereas children biometric update at the age of 5 and 15 is actually mandatory. So now before I move to authentication, I'll just break for any question you may have or any discussion you want on this before I move to the authentication, the second layer. So the floor is open for
Sir,
any question. Yeah, please. Go ahead.
good morning, sir. My name is Prince Kumar. Sir, I am just asking, government is saying that Aadhaar is mandatory for providing the services like shelter for the poor people. And I just want to ask you that Aadhaar, because of the poorness of the people, they have no shelter. Then how we will register them in the Aadhaar, because they have no address proof or like things they have. So there is a mandatory requirement in Aadhaar. Okay, what type of information will require so that Aadhaar will be created?
So Prince, very good question you have, and there were many part of it. As I recall, the one question is that in some of the schemes, Aadhaar had been made mandatory. Number one, first question was this. Second question was that if I do not have proof document, how do I get enrolled for Aadhaar? This was your second question. And the third implied question is that because a person do not have Aadhaar, then some of the services will be denied to him or her, right? Am I correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
So let me answer your question. So you are very, very right that whether some person would be excluded from Aadhaar enrollment because of the process which is designed. So let me explain you the process itself, that how. So if you look at Aadhaar process, one process is that enrollment takes place based on the document which you are talking about. And for rural fellows, suppose I belong to a village and I have to enroll and I do not have a document, right? So what Aadhaar has made a provision that the Gram Pradhan or the village head, village panchayat head is authorized to issue proof of ID and proof of address which can be used for Aadhaar enrollment. So it has been made very, very easy and simple for villagers that if they do not have any other document, supporting document which is required by Aadhaar, they can always get a certificate from the village panchayat head itself. So I mean, so normally it should be possible for the villages, because he belongs to the same village where the Mukhia or the Gram Pradhan is, to get that document and enroll for Aadhaar. That is one. The second is that there is, in many cases, what happens is that the head of family, for example, if I am head of family, I may have some proof document like ration card or some other document, and it is possible that the children or the wife or the other members do not have. So in Aadhaar enrollment, there is a concept of head of family based enrollment. Head of family based enrollment. That means if I have document and I have enrolled for Aadhaar, actually I can introduce my family members and their Aadhaar will get generated. So the second is that, and the third is that now there is a question that in the urban areas you find a lot of, say, beggars or a lot of homeless people who are kind of do not have any document to enroll for, and so they cannot use even document based enrollment, or they cannot use even head of family based enrollment, and they will not be able to access those mukhia and all. So for them there is a concept of uh, uh, introducer system, wherein what, so normally what happens is, if you go to the, there will be some kind of NGO or the government department who takes care of these homeless. So based on a kind of a introducer system, so what we say that the registrar, like the state government, will appoint some introducer, and an NGO can be that introducer, and based on the NGO certifications or higher enrollment of those homeless. So we took a drive in many of the cities, and we enrolled I mean whole lot of homeless and all, and they were given, they were distributed Aadhaar. Actually their Aadhaar letter or Aadhaar copy comes to that particular department or NGO, and that they go to their place and give to those homeless people. So they also get Aadhaar. So we take help of NGO and other uh, 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 person to give uh, I mean take care of them using the introducer system. And let me tell you that since 129 crore residents have already been given Aadhaar, right? So that means ki in our country, practically we have covered almost all the residents. So what, I mean, whosoever is left out will be very, very minimal, and those are mostly the children, newborn, and some northeastern states enrollment is left out. So that is one. So I think this is answer to your first question. Second question was making some uh, in some of the scheme mandatory. But let me explain you. Aadhaar is, of course, is said to be mandatory, but there is an exception process, in the sense that, so if you look at, for example, if you look at any of the DBT scheme, including the scheme which you said, and if you look at their notification, what it says that Aadhaar number is mandatory. In case somebody do not have Aadhaar, and he has enrolled for Aadhaar, if you have enrolled for Aadhaar, then EID itself is sufficient to get the benefit required. And the third is that somehow he is not enrolled, then based on any alternate document, that's the exception process, the benefit will be given and he'll not be denied. So the position of the law is, if a person have not enrolled for Aadhaar because of XYZ reason, and he just give an undertaking that he will enroll whenever the facility becomes available, basis of that he will not be denied any benefit. If somebody is getting denied in any villages or any scheme, those are the project implementation issue which need to be tackled in a different way. Otherwise there is no denial process. Even for the rasan, Aadhaar is mandatory, but there is an exception process. If somebody has not enrolled based on other document or other aspect, actually he'll be, in fact Aadhaar has given many of the poor people right to those rasan and all. So I'll tell you one example. We had visited Andhra Pradesh and other state, and what you found before and after Aadhaar. So before Aadhaar, what used to happen to a rasan shop, that a particular day rasan will come to the rasan shop fellow, and there'll be a long queue of the people for collecting their rasan, and after 1 day or 2 day rasan will be finished, and the shopkeeper will tell that this month rasan is over and now you will not get. And what used to happen is that the rasan which has come for everyone, by fake name and fake signature, he will just kind of sell it into the market, and he'll not be able to, people will not be able to avail that benefit. With Aadhaar, since now with Aadhaar authentication one has to collect rasan, so the pilferage, the 30-40% pilferage which those agencies or the shopkeeper used to do, that has gone away. So there is a saving to the government, and government is able to now give more rasan to more people or more subsidy to more people. That is one. And secondly, I'll give you one example. In Andhra Pradesh, implementation of this rasan is like, whenever like rasan comes from godown to those shopkeepers by the government, and whenever that shopkeeper receives those rasans, SMS goes then and there to all the residents that your quota of rasan has come to the shop and you can collect. So now everyone knows that, because the shopkeeper also authenticates using Aadhaar that he has received the rasan, and since it is going to the system, a SMS gets generated, and everyone is aware that his or her rasan has come. And secondly, I am sure as a rasan card holder that my rasan cannot be withdrawn by anybody else. He can return back to the government, but he cannot just pilferage it, right? So if I suppose, so if you look at rasan holders, suppose there are 100 rasan holders, normally only 60-70% will go to take rasan. So earlier those 40% who are not going to take rasan, the rasan keeper will sign on behalf and that pilferage will happen. But now it is not, it is accounted for, and government is saving out of that, and then it is able to kind of, from the last 1 year they are giving rasan to almost 80 crore people, all because of the savings which they have had by implementation of DBT scheme and using Aadhaar and all. I hope I answered your question, Prince.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else have any question or?
सर मेरा एक क्वेश्चन और था सर, आप अभी मेटा डेटा के बारे में बता रहे थे.
हाँ.
व्हाट इज दिस सर?
तो मेटा डेटा इज लाइक, सपोज आप जब आधार एनरोलमेंट करते हैं, so generally you are giving your name, address, gender, date of birth, the 4 demographic, mobile, email optional, 10 fingerprint and 2 iris. So this is what you give, right? Along with this, what other things gets collected at that, which machine, on which machine ID this enrollment has happened, which operator has enrolled this person, which enrollment agency this enrollment center belongs to, which registrar this enrollment agency and enrollment center and operator is engaged with, how much time it took from start of enrollment to the end of enrollment. When he was capturing your iris, how much time it took, start time and end time. When your biometric was getting captured, how much time it took, how many attempts it was made. Suppose you give your biometrics, तो नहीं आया तो हाथ साफ करके या मशीन साफ करके दोबारा रखते हैं. So it may be 4 or 5 attempts. So those all attempts are saved. So that becomes a metadata, right? Metadata which gives, and even the machine ID of those biometric devices are also captured. So in a system we know that which make and model device is being used, what is the quality of capture. So if you enroll for Aadhaar, no, if he is not, quality is not good, say below 40% threshold, then the system asks to keep the fingerprint again. So it takes 4 attempts, minimum 4 attempts, then only it will accept a quality which is slightly lower than the threshold, right? So all those metadata gets captured, which is analyzed to monitor the project. Even the GPS coordinate of the center is captured.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you.
So those are metadata. Any more question from any of you? Yeah, please go ahead.
सर जो आपने अभी बताया कि सर those who don't have any proof of address, उनका ग्राम प्रधान उनका एज एड्रेस मतलब का लिख के दे देंगे, then he will apply for आधार. सर क्या मतलब इस प्रोसेस का कोई और चेक है सर? क्या, क्योंकि अगर ऐसा है तो मतलब फिर तो सर नेशनल सिक्योरिटी को भी थ्रेट हो सकता है, किसी का भी बन सकता है उस हिसाब से, मतलब माइग्रेंट्स इसी मतलब.
हाँ, so I mean, one thing we should understand very very clearly that suppose Asutosh have enrolled for Aadhaar in a fictitious name, ठीक है, आपने किसी से कागज बनवा लिया और अपने अपना आधार एनरोलमेंट कर लिया, right? Suppose somebody is trying to fake his identity, but the problem is that since it is based on biometric, your Aadhaar can generated only once. So whatever name, date of birth, gender you put, but you can get only one Aadhaar. And in case, and you are struck up. So I'll tell you one story that in Andhra Pradesh, I think you'll appreciate after that. In Andhra Pradesh, Andhra government used to give pension and other benefit to senior citizens, right? So what during initial enrollment itself, I mean those fellows are very clever, that while enrollment for Aadhaar, uh, at the place of father, son gave his fingerprint and other attribute, demographic and photograph was given by the father. So they kind of collided with the operator also and did that. And even after death of the father, he continued to get the pension because you were able to authenticate even with the fingerprint somehow. So, but what happened is that in due course, he was also required Aadhaar for school admission, for scholarship, for other scheme, right? So he, went to Aadhaar enrollment center and enrolled for him. So, but when he enrolled, his enrollment got rejected. Why it got rejected? Because I said we do 1:n deduplication process, in the sense that if you enroll for Aadhaar, we match your biometrics with all available biometrics in the Aadhaar data center, and only after it is not matching with any of the biometric which I have, I generate Aadhaar, otherwise I reject. So his Aadhaar got rejected. He tried second time, third time, so he did 10-15 times at different location, his application got rejected. So he started crying कि आधार बेकार है. Then some civil society also became on his side and they were started criticizing. So when the case came to us, we found that he already have Aadhaar because his biometric is there. When it was analyzed and then he came to our office also, he himself said that he during enrollment of his father he gave his biometric and that is struck up, right? We solved that problem, but we could have done some case against him, but we found that because of the innocence or that aspect, he did that. So we solved that problem. But if you mischief, try to fake your identity, you will be struck up for life. That is one answer. That one person will get only one Aadhaar. Whatever name you change, date of birth you change, or any parameter you change, because your biometric is not going to change, right? So that is one. Secondly, let me answer his question fully. Secondly, he said about migrant, right? So in our country, so it's very tough for us uh, to find out that who is migrant and who is kind of the real resident of the country, right? So, and even the America is not able to solve that problem, Mexico border and all. So these problems are more settled at the border. You cannot suppose some migrant is residing in your country from 10 years, 20 years. Normally he'll have PAN card, ration card, passport, every other document. So Aadhaar will also not catch. So, but the good part of Aadhaar is that suppose today you decide that now since everyone has got enrolled for Aadhaar, anybody else coming for Aadhaar enrollment has to be seen with suspicion, because एडल्ट कहाँ से आ गया, अब तो सबको दे दिया हमने आधार, तो उसकी पूरी जांच करके आप आधार बनाए, तो what will happen from today onwards, I can say that since I have covered all the population, anybody adult, so newborn we will continue to enroll, but any adult is coming for Aadhaar enrollment, a full police verification or other aspect can be started. That's a kind of a proposed process which can be started at any point of time. Once we decide that okay जितने हैं उनको हम अलग तरीके से देखेंगे कौन माइग्रेंट है कौन नहीं है, लेकिन आज के बाद any Aadhaar enrollment there will be a stringent process for adults, so that can be done. I hope I answered Asutosh your question, or you.
Yes, yes.
Okay, Anurag, you are saying something.
Yes, sir. Saying that previous case where that guy had actually used his his own fingerprint for his father's Aadhaar card. The thing is, now is he not eligible of fraud?
So he did a fraud. He really did a fraud, and one of the course of action could have been to jail him, right? But he was a poor fellow. He
Yes.
belonged to a village, and because of getting some ration, he did that mistake. So there were two course of action. One is that put him in jail. Other is that maaf kar do, or wo that make that example and showcase that to. It's a case study which I'm telling you, right? so we solved his problem. Kind of maafi mil gayi usse, but now people know that if they do a mischief, they will struck up.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
You cannot solve all the problem by sending people to jail, so you have to be considerate to some extent, right? Any
Yes,
more?
sir, yes, sir.
Any more question or so these were the questions related to Aadhaar. So let me ask some of you, maybe Shravan or Rupesh, that about project management, what did you learn from this story which I told you? So maybe Shravan and Rupesh can open their mic and tell me that what did you learn about the project management from whatever I told you. So, हाँ Shravan.
सर आधार को
तुम्हारी आवाज नहीं आ रही है, तुम्हारा आवाज बहुत प्रॉब्लम है.
आई एम ऑडिबल?
हाँ अभी ठीक है थोड़ा.
हाँ ये सर जैसे ये आधार सर एक बहुत बड़ा प्रोजेक्ट था मतलब ऑल इंडिया लेवल पर, तो उसको कैसे मतलब हैंडल करना, तो इसके थ्रू सर हमें प्रोजेक्ट मैनेजमेंट का बारे में काफी कुछ पता चला कि इसे कैसे प्रोजेक्ट्स को हम मतलब छोटे छोटे पार्ट्स में डिवाइड कर सकते हैं, कैसे उसको हम मतलब पब्लिक तक कैसे इजीली पहुंच सकते हैं. जैसे यहाँ पे आधार हमने एनरोलमेंट सेंटर्स गाँव में मतलब कैंप के थ्रू लगा दिए सर, और कैसे इतना बड़ा था, लोगों के फिंगरप्रिंट्स वगैरह लेने थे सारा कुछ, तो मतलब इजीली उनसे हम कैसे कनेक्ट हो सकते हैं. और यही मतलब सर काफी कुछ हमने मतलब किया कि कैसे प्रोजेक्ट को हैंडल करना है सर ऑल इंडिया लेवल पे.
ठीक है. रुपेश, you want to add something?
Yes, sir. Most of the points Shravan has covered, and apart from this, means in future, while dealing with that project, there may come issues like you have really pointed out. That means someone is misusing that. So already we have implemented that feature with the Aadhaar, that means fingerprints and all checkpoints. How we have implemented, so that we have to beforehand implement these features, so that in future it will not be misused.
Okay. Asutosh, if you want to add something more.
All they have covered sir.
Okay. Anurag.
सर ये चीज और कर सकते हैं जैसे आधार, पहले हम आधार सर ऑथेंटिकेशन करते हैं, अभी हम के बाद मतलब वर्चुअल आईडी यूज करते हैं. मतलब अपने हमने कोई प्रोजेक्ट बना लिया सर, तो इसके जो डीमेरिट्स हैं उनमें हम कैसे लिमिट कर सकते हैं सर.
ठीक है. अनुराग.
ओवरकम कर सकते हैं.
Right. Anurag.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We have covered so many things.
Okay, so let me summarize whatever you all said and whatever you didn't say. The first part was that to break your project into small pieces and do that. And if you have to do something where you have to reach out to the entire population, then you have to create an ecosystem, in the sense that you cannot do everything yourself. You can create an ecosystem which can scale, and the central system should be such that you are able to scale on a technology wise in a very smooth way, and you are able to scale the operation by putting your ecosystem of registrar, enrollment agency, operator, etc. So those were the learning related to the project management. So let us move to the second layer, which is authentication. Is my PPT visible now?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, so once we have enrolled for Aadhaar, the second and important aspect is authentication, because if you have given ID to everyone, so everyone has got some kind of ID in his or her hand. So in a analog way or in a normal way, he can or she can show the ID and get some services. So that is already enabled. The second is, can we automate? Can the service provider authenticate? Suppose I bring in my card, whether it's genuine or not, how that can be ascertained? So the second layer was authentication platform, which Aadhaar did. So what was that? The Aadhaar authentication ecosystem, and then how it worked. So to make this happen, so again you have to reach out to various, point of presence, in the sense that every nook and corner, if some centers are opened for giving some service, there people can come and authenticate themselves and get those services. So to create this system, you require an ecosystem of agencies who are actually serving, the agencies who are technically expert and the agency who are actually giving the service. There has to be merger or coalition of that. So basically this is ecosystem. This diagram gives you the ecosystem. The central to this ecosystem is the UIDI, which we also called auth server or CIDR. And with this you connect, we call it ASA, Authentication Service Agency. So they are the entity who connects to Aadhaar system on lease line in a very secure way. So they connect through a very secure way to the Aadhaar system. And the second hierarchy after this ASA, Authentication Service Agency, are AUA, Authentication User Agency. I'll give you some example who are they, so you'll appreciate. Or KYC User Agency, or even the sub AUA. They are also called requesting agency in the law. Technically they are called AUA, Authentication User Agency, or KYC User Agency. And then you have actual point of presence where you have those authentication devices where Aadhaar holder gets services. I'll give one example. In the central government offices, we have attendance system. So attendance system, those tablet based devices along with the fingerprint sensor are kept at ground floor, first floor of the offices, where when you come to the office you put your finger and put also your Aadhaar number and you get authenticated by UIDA and your attendance is done when you come, and then while going also you do the second attendance. So so those are the authentication devices, those tablet. And now in our case NIC is AUA and ASA both. So in attendance case NIC is the AUA and NIC is also the ASA. So this is how. So when you put your fingerprint with your Aadhaar number, it actually goes to UIDI finally, and here we match your fingerprint with the fingerprint which you enrolled and gave to Aadhaar with that. And if it is matches which say yes, that means आपकी attendance लग गई. If it doesn't matches, then kind of you are trying something fake, and it takes less than a millisecond. Sometime in a millisecond, less than a second, maybe 20 millisecond or 5 millisecond, that much time it takes for your data to go to UIDI server and come back. The other example is say a ration card. So in case of a ration card, these authentication devices are there at the shopkeepers. Then you have state government as AUA, or NIC, they engage NIC as AUA, and finally NIC as ASA. In case of banking sector, your AUA is the bank itself, but ASA is NPCI. NPCI is National Payment Corporation of India, is a kind of a clearing house. So this is the ecosystem. So if you look at that, Aadhaar have got many huge number of ecosystems. Said data is old, it is now 235. So they have 184 AUA, these agencies, 23 ASA, which includes NIC, NPCI, BSNL and all, and KUAs are normally, some of the AUAs are also KUA, that means they can do eKYC. For example, banks are KUA because they use eKYC to open bank account, and even at point Reliance Jio was our KUA, and they used Aadhaar KYC to give mobile connection, and they were able to give 20 crore to 30 crore connections within a short span of 4 to 5 months because of the simple process using Aadhaar authentication. Okay, so how it works that a person give his Aadhaar number, and along with some of the biometric or demographic attribute, either the iris or the fingerprint, he has to keep on the device. And we also do authentication based on demographic and also based on OTP. So let us take an example of biometric, that Aadhaar number and one of your finger or iris is kept on a device, and then it goes to Aadhaar system, and it matches with your data, and if it is correct then it says yes or no. And in case of eKYC, based on your consent, the eKYC data, which is your name, date of birth, gender, address and your facial image, it's sent back to the agency. For example, if you are opening a bank account, then your banker gets this data in an encrypted and digitally signed way. So you have yes no authentication. So normally attendance is example of yes no authentication, or rasan delivery is also yes no authentication. While entering into a database or opening a bank account, the first time use is normally eKYC, and then OTP based. So there are certain self-service based uh, uh, services which you can avail based on OTP. For example, if you want to open a DigiLocker account, so it is OTP based. It is Aadhaar OTP based. That OTP sent by Aadhaar and verified by Aadhaar. If you want to get a instant PAN, then with Aadhaar OTP you can do that. If you want to open a bank account of that is called Chota bank account, where you can deposit maximum up to 1 lakh rupees. So that is opened in an online process using Aadhaar OTP. So there are many applications which is based on OTP. There are many applications which is based on biometrics, and in some cases we call it demographic authentication, wherein you are not required to visit any center. Your service provider, since you have provided him Aadhaar number, he sends your name, gender, DOB, any other demographic information to UIDAI, and UIDAI replies that yes or no, whether it is matching with the Aadhaar number being given or not. So here your physical presence or OTP is not required. So you have biometric authentication, demographic authentication and OTP authentication, so that different kind of services can avail different authentication process. Even there is a way that if you want to mix two type of authentication, you can do that. You can do that. I'll do OTP authentication and biometric to make it more secure if your transactions are more valuable. So you can do that also. And the best
question.
let me finish and then I'll open for the question after this authentication slide. 2-3 point. Okay. So in this process, as I said, that UIDAI do not collect purpose or location of the transactions. For example, if you are opening a bank account using Aadhaar authentication, so Aadhaar system do not know that this transaction was for opening a bank account or withdrawing a money. The purpose is not collected. Even the location from where this authentication is done is not collected by UIDAI, so that privacy is preserved. One of the aspect is privacy. So such transactions, if you look at that, so UIDAI has done so far 55 billion authentication so far. I mean such a number, and every day there is a 30 million, so that is 3 crore authentication every day happens through the various scheme. That scheme could be Rasan one, or could be many schemes are using that. I'll show you later in the slide. And as I said, there are 235 AUs now. So basically, from the project management perspective, when the system was designed, it was designed to handle millions and billions of transactions every day. So Aadhaar system was designed in a way that you are able to scale, suppose, this authentication framework by just adding the next server, next server, next server, and there's no other thing required. And the server and all which is used in Aadhaar ecosystem are COTS, commercially off the shelf server. So you are not tied up with Dell, or you are not tied up with IBM server, you are not tied up with a particular make and model of server. You can buy it from any commercially available server and put it into your data center and it will work. So it was a scalable design, and today the Aadhaar system is designed to handle 10 million transaction a day. 10 crore, 100 million transaction a day, whereas the per day it is 30 million. So it is already over designed, and whenever it reaches, suppose 50 million, 60 million, they can always scale it up by adding the next hardware or configuring the next hardware which they may already have, right? So let me stop here, and there were certain questions I try to answer and then proceed further.
Yes, सर ये हम लोग कोई अकाउंट खोलते हैं सर, चाहे डीमैट हो चाहे बैंक हो, जब आधार पे सर केवाईसी है तो मान लीजिए सर उन्हें केवल 2 इन्फॉर्मेशन चाहिए, तो क्या सर आधार की साइड से उन्हें केवल 2 इन्फॉर्मेशन मिलती है, पूरी इन्फॉर्मेशन मिल जाती है आगे केवाईसी की?
नहीं, जब भी आप सपोज बैंक अकाउंट ओपन करते हैं या फिर आप जो एनपीएस का अकाउंट ओपन करते हैं, जो ऑनलाइन जितनी भी चीज़ें हैं, और ईकेवाईसी अगर वहाँ होती है, तो आपका the demographic which you have given, name, gender, date of birth, and your address, these are passed on, and your facial photograph, only these parameters are passed on. आपका मोबाइल और ईमेल can be given if you give a specific separate consent for that. तो जब आप PKYC होता है तो वहाँ पे चेक बॉक्स होते हैं. एक होता है जनरल कॉन्सेंट का कि you give consent to UIDAI to share your demographic to the agency from where you are taking the service, number one. अगर वो एजेंसी को आपका मोबाइल और ईमेल भी चाहिए तो देयर इज वन मोर टिक दैट यू आर आल्सो गिविंग कंसेंट फॉर मोबाइल एंड ईमेल, शेयरिंग योर मोबाइल एंड ईमेल विद द कंसर्न एजेंसी. सो उसको नॉर्मली यही चाहिए होता है. सो प्रूफ ऑफ आईडी और प्रूफ ऑफ एड्रेस में यही 4 पैरामीटर होते हैं: नेम, डेट ऑफ बर्थ, जेंडर, एड्रेस, योर फेशियल फोटोग्राफ, एंड दैट इज व्हाट is given to those agency. Email, mobile is optional. If they require and give consent, that is given. इसमें आपका क्वेश्चन आंसर हुआ और यू हैड सम अदर थिंग?
यस सर. सर एक और क्वेश्चन है सर कि मान कोई जो ट्रांजैक्शन मतलब कोई भी केवाईसी होती है, क्या सर इसका आधार चार्ज करता है क्या सर बैंक से, या जो
good question, good question. So you have a good question. So there are so one has to look at initially it was all free for all agency. It was completely free. As I said, Jio did 20-30 crore EKYC, so that time it was free. So later on, from I think 1.5 years back, certain charges were defined for authentication and EKYC, and there were definition of category. For example, all government entities, all the DBT schemes, for example, Rasan, EPFO, I mean all those agencies who are part of government DBT program, so their authentication charges are 0, EKYC as well as authentication. So there is no charge taken by UIDAI, because these are government projects and UIDAI is also funded by central government. Those entities who are commercial in nature, for example banks or the telecom entity, they are charged a nominal amount, in the sense that authentication charges are only 50 paise, 1 rupee, whereas the EKYC is 20 rupees. So I'll tell you one example, even 20 rupees, how it is very, very cheap. For example, when earlier when say Airtel used to handle offline proof of address and proof of ID for giving mobile, so they had hired agency who would collect, digitize, send it to Airtel, right? And those physical copies will be kept for some of the years as per the law requirement, right? So their spend was initially 500 per connection, rupees 500 per connection was their cost, and there was a cost to maintain those physical copy of the record every year, because they will hire a big storage where these POI, POA will be stored. So there was a huge cost. Compared to that cost, eKYC means you pay only say 20 rupees per eKYC, and that is permanent. You can store as a database which you already have. So your cost has reduced many multi-fold because of the process which you have in a better way. And now even without Aadhaar, DOT has prescribed a fully electronic process where is through mobile only connection is given now. So those processes are also, I mean, even at UIDAI we suggested this process to DOT, and DOT accepted and they issued a circular. Now whether Aadhaar or not Aadhaar, the system has been simplified. So if you use Aadhaar, it is only 20 rupees eKYC cost, but eKYC is done only once at the time of entry, not beyond that. That too is a cheap compared to the offline process or any other process which may have. Any more question? Whether I answered your question?
Yes, sir.
Eh,
Well, sir, now Aadhaar is earning a lot.
Aadhaar is?
Sir, they are earning means
You are right. You are right. So Aadhaar revenue is about, I mean, if you go to their website, they have published that. So 100 200 crore they earn in a year as of now, but the total expenditure every year is about 900 to 1000 crore. Shall we proceed?
सर एक मेरा क्वेश्चन था,
हाँ.
इसका ये पोर्टल कितना सिक्योर है सर? क्योंकि आजकल आप देख रहे हैं, हम लोग देख रहे हैं कि डेटा टाइप से नहीं हुआ है और आने वाले टाइम में डेटा की बहुत रिक्वायरमेंट रहेगी, तो क्या ये डेटा हम प्राइवेट कंपनीज में बेच सकते हैं? इस टाइप का कुछ है या गवर्नमेंट बेच सकती है किसी को इस टाइप का डेटा?
नहीं, देखो, from the day one, if you look at Aadhaar system and even the law, so how how do you protect the data? So one, you protect through technology, right? The first aspect of protecting your data is the technology. So Aadhaar employs various layer of security, and it is kind of best in class. I mean, if you compare any system across the world, it is best in class as far as security aspects are concerned. So that is, so ultimately nothing is absolute secure in the world, but they deploy the best of the security aspect which is available in the world. That is one. Second is that suppose whatever security you have deployed and I purposely, Aadhaar purposely transfer the data to any agency. So for that there are two things. One is that even law prohibits that, right? So there is a provision in the law that Aadhaar cannot share your data or anybody's data to any agency without consent of the individual, right? So only when you tick the consent that okay, my demographic data and photograph can be given to a particular bank to open bank account, then only Aadhaar gives that data on a specific consent. And not only that, there is a liability on the bank that the bank will not use that data for any other purpose. For example, data you have given for opening a bank account, the bank cannot use that data to say offer you an insurance scheme based on only that data unless you give a consent, right? A second consent. So every time has to be explicit consent to use your data which you are given to. So bank cannot also transfer to third party your even the demographic data. And as far as biometric data is concerned, we are at UIDAI, even with your consent, they are not authorized to share your biometric data. So there was a case in Goa wherein there was some rape case, and there the agency CBI said that Goa is a small place, they had captured some chance fingerprint and they wanted Aadhaar to match and give the data. We said will not match. Then said that give the entire biometric data. We said we cannot give, we are just custodian, we are not authorized. They even went to High Court and High Court gave judgment in their favor. We went to Supreme Court and Supreme Court ruled that yes, UIDAI will not give biometric to these agencies. Even the CBI and other agency, we are not supposed to give any data to them unless there is a national security issue. So only in case of a national security, and I'll tell you that so far, I mean, I was there in Aadhaar till last year. Not a single case has come where we have to share any data, even in respect of national security. So the way their law has, if you read their law, they are prohibited. If somebody does something, he'll be in jail. So from the law, you have to be very, very secure. You have to be secure through technologies. And in those two aspects, they are taken care of.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so shall we proceed? Okay,
Yes, sir.
fine. So I think we covered this. So now, as I said, that authentication will require some devices. One device, attendance system, it's shown here. So this is a form factor. There will be some devices like any POS. There will be this device is attached to any computer, or even it is attached to any device, a standalone. This is a iris device. Mobile can also work. Mobile, you connect a fingerprint device and it will work. You also see some this kind of devices. So basically there are many form factor of the devices which can be used. So almost all types of devices can be used. And since the services are to be offered in remote areas, so design of authentication system was such that data requirement is very, very less. So it can work on a 2G connection where GPRS or edge is there, 3G, 4G. So whatever kind of data you have, these devices will work, because only data transfer is required in kbps, few kbps. 4 kbps is the data which goes to UIDAI, not more than that. So even a 2G data will suffice. And there are applications which is used as a assisted mode. For example, if you go to a ration card, the shopkeeper assists you. If you go to some other place, in case of some system like attendance, it is kind of a self-service. You do authenticate yourself. So it could be in a self-service mode, or it could be in a assisted mode. Now just look at Aadhaar journey, some of the data. So as I said that 2009 Aadhaar was constituted, 2009, and within 1 year of constitution of Aadhaar, the first Aadhaar was issued in in in, in September, October 2010, 1.5 years almost. So, and after that it was a exponential journey. If you just look at 25 crore they achieved in January 13, 50 crore they achieved in November 13, 75 crore they achieved in January 15, 100 crore by April 16, and so on. It was now it is saturated, so the graph has become flat. And so if you look at the number coverage, so almost the entire country is covered. All those green are coverage basically. So only in some part in Northeast where enrollment started very late, or some population is left out. Otherwise, all across the country, I mean, Aadhaar enrollment is almost complete except for the children. Few children would be left. The newborn will always be left. And now they have 129 crore Aadhaar issued. Unique Aadhaar issued is 129 crore. And if you look at various numbers, so as I said that they have issued 129 crore enrollment, and just look at this figure. So update is let's see, 3.3 crore. So total update, successful update, this shows the successful update, 3.3 crore update. As I said that now the focus is shifted towards update. And authentication, if you look at, as I said, 55 billion authentication. That means how many crores? 5,548 crore authentication they have done. And eKYC, if you look at, it is 930 crore. So that is 9 billion authentication they have done so far, right? And what is the monthly trend, average monthly trend? So if you look at March figure, this is the March of Aadhaar generation. So it was about 4 million, that is 40 lakh Aadhaar generation happened in the month of March. And if you look at update in the month of March, it was almost 12 million, so 1.2 crore. So as I said, 40 lakh Aadhaar generation, 1.2 crore update in a month is happening. So earlier, if you look at previous year figure, enrollment will be in crore and update will be few lakh. Now the trend have reversed. People are updating their data to the system, and enrollment is happening less because most people are already covered, and only the northeast and children are remaining, and which enrollment is happening as of now. Similarly, if you look at authentication, as I said, 55 billion. If you look at monthly figure, and let us take here also March figure, because April, May there was lockdown, so it slowed down a bit. But if you just look at March figure, just see it was almost 1000 million, almost 1000 million transaction. So that is 100 crore transactions in a month. If you look at eKYC, it was almost 130 million, that is 13 crore. Almost 10% of, more than 10% of authentications are actually eKYC. So these are the volumes. So one of the aspect of project management is that how your success will be gauged. So this is the sign of success, that every day there is a 3 crore or 30 million authentication transaction which is happening, and 10% of that, 10 to 15% of that is eKYC, is sign of the success, right? If you look at the initial growth for first 6-7 years of Aadhaar enrollment, the rate of enrolling a person through biometric was even, that rate was much higher than Facebook at that point of time, or WhatsApp at that point of time. Now since we have to cover only that much population, so that will change. But the speed on which the scale, building the momentum, if you recall the initial aspect, building the momentum was such that we overpassed even the big tech companies, right, in terms of speed and all. Now, who are the users of this authentication and eKYC? Who are the users? Let us look at this slide. So this I have taken from website of UIDAI, wherein you can also see, I think this is not properly visible. Let me open their website and show you. So this is Aadhaar homepage, uidi.gov.in, and if you go down, here is the dashboard. We should click on view on dashboard. If you click this, you will get this page where you have all the data related to enrollment, update, which I shown you in my slide, authentication data. And if you click this authentication, you get this information, that how much is the daily transaction. So this gets updated on a daily basis. And if you just look at ASA transaction, authentication service agency, who are actually connected to Aadhaar, you get the data which I wanted to show. Just see this. So if you look at this, this is the current month, which is June. So it's half of the month. 17th June is today. This data is till yesterday. So if you look at this, how many authentication transactions is done by NPCI is more than 240 million in 15 days. So what is this total auth transactions? And most of these are fingerprint based. Just see the blue one is the fingerprint. So most transactions are fingerprint transactions. So it is either eKYC or those AEPS, which I'll talk about later, and very few is demographic and OTP, right? This is OTP. OTP is less compared to the fingerprint. So 240 million auth transactions only by NPCI in last 17 days, right? So all the bank, this shows the financial inclusion part of Aadhaar objective, that how Aadhaar can work as a tool for financial inclusion. Since it is being used for by banking sector, so it is actually helping the financial inclusion of those fellows, rural and remote area person, who were not part of the system earlier. And the second number what you see is the NIC. And NIC, you see that total transaction is about 170 million, that is 17 crore, and this includes fingerprint, which is 98 million, and demographic 60 million and OTP 6.2 million. So these transactions are mainly for DBT program, scholarship, ration card, etc., etc. So these are transactions for social welfare. So as I said that one of the objective of Aadhaar is social inclusion of the people who are. So earlier, no, if you look at before Aadhaar scenario, the person in village will not get any loan. Person in village will not get any service because he'll not have his identity and all. Because now he has identity, that is digital identity, all those schemes he is able to enroll very easily, and that's why these transactions are happening. And others are CSC, BSNL. BSNL Hyderabad is the ASA, and the UID internal system. So just you see the first top two ASA, one is for financial inclusion and other is for social inclusion. So this also proves that how Aadhaar have been successful in this. So let me go back to my slide. Okay. So let's talk about financial inclusion, which I shown you the figure that how it is helping uh, uh, residents to avail services which is helping in financial inclusion. So using Aadhaar, there are three systems of the platform which gets created for financial inclusion, and we call it access, address, and transactions. So what is access? When I say access, so basically when you open a new bank account, so we call it access. That now you have access to your bank account, and you open the bank account using Aadhaar eKYC in a paperless process in a 2-3 minutes. If you have existing account and you give your Aadhaar number to your bank, they seed their Aadhaar into existing bank, then again it becomes the Aadhaar enabled. So once you have opened your bank account using Aadhaar or seeded your Aadhaar into bank account, we call it AEBA, that is Aadhaar enabled bank account. Now you can use the next part, which I'll tell you, AEPS, that Aadhaar enabled banking system, you can use it, right? So that is one platform. Second is the address, that how Aadhaar number becomes your financial address. You don't require your bank account number or IFSC code. So basically there is a platform called Aadhaar Payment Bridge. So when you give your Aadhaar to your bank, your Aadhaar number goes to NPCI, they call it mapper, and now there is a mapping between your Aadhaar number and bank account, right? So when government want to send money, subsidy, for example, every month crores of subsidy in terms of LPG is transferred. So it is based on majorly based on your Aadhaar number. So what they do is they just take the Aadhaar number of beneficiary and send it to, and the amount to be given, and send it to their bankers, and bankers on a click of a button they are able to transfer money to the beneficiary. So it becomes a very, very good platform wherein you can transfer any amount to a person based on Aadhaar. For example, even I get my salary which is Aadhaar based, that means even if I change my bank account and seed same Aadhaar number, I don't need to provide a bank account number or IFSC code to the employer again and again, right? Because I only seed my Aadhaar number with the bank, and then my salary continue to come onto the bank account which I have seeded. So that is ABP. So basically if you look at more than 70-80 crore individual Aadhaar is already on Mapper, and that's why government is able to, all those Kisan Nidhi fund or many benefits which government transfer, they are using the Aadhaar payment bridge being run by NPCI to transfer money into, this is G2C, government to citizen transfer of benefit directly into their bank account. And the third is a transaction. So using a small device based on mobile or tablet, you can withdraw money, you can deposit money, you can open a bank account, you can check balance, and then it is interoperable. That means one bank AEPS device, suppose I have an account in Axis Bank, and the device which is being carried by a Bank Mitra belongs to State Bank, still I can withdraw money or deposit money. So it's a interoperable system based on Aadhaar, based on your fingerprint, and you don't need to remember your bank account number. You just put in your Aadhaar number and bank name, and then you can withdraw money, you can deposit money, even you can open a new bank account. So that is what Aadhaar platform has enabled for financial inclusion. And if you look at in terms of number, this data is slightly less. So ABP I talked about, where government transfer money to bank account of individual. So this number is till September 20. I'll show you the current data also. 712 crore such ABP transactions had happened, and month to month you can calculate here. Similarly, there were 71 crore, more than 70, now it is perhaps 80 crore people whose bank account is seeded with the mapper. That means every household uh, Aadhaar number is seeded, and government is in position to transfer any subsidy to any person in the country. So that's what this platform has given up. I'll show you one more data which I have taken from NPCI website related to ABP after few more slides. Okay, so this is the device I was talking about, that this kind of form factor of devices, this becomes a human ATM. One person will carry this, we call it Bank Mitra. He goes to rural and remotest part of the country, and based on Aadhaar number, the individuals can withdraw money or can deposit money, open a bank account. Uh, this device is being offered by IDFC Bank, it's written somewhere, and this is a generic device of developed by Bharat Electronics, which many banks are deploying. So it could be a mobile based, it could be a tablet. This is a tablet based, this is a POS kind of device. So we call it human ATM. So for example, government is transferring money as a pension to senior citizen in remotest part of the area. Now the question is, once you have transferred the money, how to withdraw that? The resident will have difficulty in withdrawing the money. So now these fellows, Bank Mitra they go to those rural and remote area, and they help people to withdraw money or deposit money. Just see this particular picture, wherein he is a Bank Mitra, he has got a device. Now he went to this lady. So this lady has received, say, a pension, Briddha pension from state government or central government into the bank account. Now how to withdraw money? So now this lady only puts, her finger onto this device, and the bank name, and Bank Mitra will know because every month he'll be visiting, and the lady can withdraw money, part of the, she can withdraw the entire money, or she can withdraw part of it, or if she has got some extra cash she can deposit. So he becomes a human ATM, and all basic banking services can be offered with this device. This device is attached a SIM card, so that even with the 2G data this banking transactions are happening. So how much transactions are happening, I'll be just showing you that. So there are about uh, 3 to 4 lakh such Bank Mitra who are going to villages and remote area. And if you look at the transactions, these transactions, so this is up to September. I'll also show you the current data from the website. 762 crore such transactions had happened. And I'll just show you some figure which we had done it. I'll just show you here. I think there'll be, let me show you this Excel sheet or website of NPCI. So this is a NPCI website. If you go to statistics and you click the AEPS, which I talked about, that particular device. So just see, in the month of May, total successful transaction was 292 million, that is 29 crore transaction in a month. So every day about 1 crore transactions, right? And how much was the value, amount of money withdrawn or deposited? Just see this figure, it was in crore. 24,000 crores of rupees were withdrawn using those handheld kind of devices. right? So this is the power of the Aadhaar based AEPS, where this kind of services are being given. And if you recall the lockdown period of last year, when all the ATM got dried, when I mean all the systems were closed, this AEPS was allowed, and these fellows went to village, and then the banking, the cash withdrawal had happened, and the transactions had doubled. So that came as a rescue, or kind of it became a disaster help to the people, that people were able to withdraw. Even in the cities, some of the such bank mitras were deployed in various offices and all, so that people can withdraw the money. So this is the power of AEPS, and you can look at these transactions from NPCI website, which on their homepage there is a link. So if you go to the homepage of NPCI, and then here you have all the transactions below. AEPS is here. That if you click this, you'll reach to the same page where I was, and you can see year-wise statistics. For every year there is a transaction given, and you can even download the year-wise data. This is the data which one can download from NPCI website, and the highlighted one is the data related to all those platform Aadhaar based. This is the ABP which I talked about. This is the BHIM. It works like a POS. This is all your AEPS or eKYC data, and if you see, it is very increasing trend. For example, if you look at the previous years, just 14-15, it was only 164 million transaction. Then it was 700 plus million transaction, then 900 million transactions, and in 18 it was 1500 million transactions. So transactions are increasing every year, and if you look at these figures, finally year 1920 it was 1675 crores transactions, and in terms of value in billion of rupees it was 990. So it is increasing day by day, because that is becoming very convenient for remote and rural areas. So let me proceed to the slides, or let me stop here and then uh, discuss it, and then proceed further. So we have 10-20 minutes. So if you have any question, you please, in 2-3 minutes let's close, and then finally the last part of the presentation I'll
Sir,
move through. Yeah.
sir, on that slide in which Bank Mitra was there, so please, if you can just open it once.
This one?
Yes, sir. Sir, this graph that is shown over here, the first one. Sir, is this cumulative data, or is it a monthly
this is
data?
cumulative data. As I said, that this is the cumulative data, and if you want to get monthly, you can just subtract the two figure. Okay. So just to understand, I'll just tell you. Just look at this figure. AEPS. This is the AEPS figure, and let us take the current data. So the first two row we have to see. One is the interbank, other is the intra-bank. Let me go to the end and show you how much transaction it is. Just see this. For the last year, if you look at the data, that is 2021. So it was, you have to add this. This is 2000, about 3000 million. That is 300 crore of transaction which happened in the year 2021. Okay, 2000 intra-bank and 1000 interbank, right? So it was about 3000 transactions, and this year if you look at, it is so far, I mean, so till June it is this much number, about 260 plus 152. This is the transactions, and there are monthly transactions. If you look at monthly, say May, so 124 plus 84, so 200 plus million transactions which has happened, right? So this is what was shown here. So in the graph also, that was cumulative graph. Do you have any other question?
No, sir. Thank you, sir.
Anybody else having any other question? So okay, so let me just ask from say Vikas.
Sir,
And yeah, please go ahead.
Sir, likewise, as PAN linking is made mandatory with the Aadhaar now. So, are there any other further projects also that land records and all that made to be compulsory to make it linking with Aadhaar?
Yes, so let me tell you, there are certain. We are a federal government now, so some of the subjects are dealt by state, and some of the subjects are dealt by center. You must be aware, right?
Yes.
So wherever center deal the subject, right? Central government deals the subject. So they normally they were proactive and they introduced Aadhaar in almost all the schemes. Most of the schemes they included Aadhaar as one of the important requirement. And some of the subject like land, etc., are mainly the state subject. So if you look at say Jharkhand, so there if you want to register a property or lease a property, Aadhaar is kind of a mandatory, even in Maharashtra. So since it is state subject, it is state to state may vary because state has to decide whether to make it mandatory or not to make it mandatory. So every state government with their own wisdom decide. So nowadays almost many states are using Aadhaar even in land record, right? Like PAN card was like a central government subject, so to actually require Aadhaar mandatorily into any scheme, it is not just like one day I can ask that Aadhaar is mandatory. So as per the Aadhaar Act or the Aadhaar law, if you want to make mandatory, you have to amend your law. So your law should itself be amended. That Parliament has to pass a law that a particular scheme Aadhaar has to be made mandatory and you have to justify. You cannot just make Aadhaar everywhere mandatory. So for PAN card, so there is a section in the Income Tax Act which is called 139A. So they inserted a paragraph or the para in the act which is 139AA which mandated Aadhaar requirement for issuing a PAN card or those who are having PAN card to give the Aadhaar number. But there is an exception given there also, in the sense that if you do not have Aadhaar, suppose somehow you have not got enrolled for Aadhaar or you are not eligible for Aadhaar, then Aadhaar is not mandatory for you. But if you have Aadhaar enrolled for Aadhaar, giving Aadhaar is mandatory for you. So that's a law. So no one would be denied. For example, NRIs. So earlier, NRIs were not entitled to get an Aadhaar. Now they're entitled. Law was amended. That's why in the PAN law, at that point of time, it was said that Aadhaar is not mandatory for NRIs, but it is mandatory for residents. In residents also there was the exception process. If somebody do not have, he can give EID. When he is not enrolled, then he has to give some undertaking, right? And now they have a law that in place of PAN, even you can quote Aadhaar number. So that's what. So suppose tomorrow a particular government want to make Aadhaar mandatory, so they have to pass a law. Then only they can make it mandatory. It is not just you can make the Aadhaar mandatory. Just to avoid hardship of the citizen, if you make something mandatory and if you're not able to help, uh, that will be a problem. Did I answer your question?
Okay. Yes, sir. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so let me ask Amol and Vikas. Yeah, please go ahead.
सर हम जैसे हमारे पास बाकी आईडीज हैं, वोटर आईडी, पासपोर्ट, ड्राइविंग लाइसेंस, तो इन सबको हम आधार के साथ क्लब कर सकते हैं क्या? क्यों ना हम एक ऐसी आईडी बनाते हैं जो मतलब हर जगह यूज हो सके। और आधार जो कि सबके पास है आजकल, मतलब जैसे आपने बताया 129 करोड़ आधार हम जनरेट कर चुके हैं, तो वैसा कुछ नहीं कर सकते क्या? ऐसा कुछ आइडिया नहीं है अभी आधार में।
तो विनायक, जो आइडिया आप दे रहे हो वो सारे लोग यही आइडिया देते हैं कि जब आधार का डेटा आ ही गया तो सब लोग डेटा क्यों कलेक्ट करें, उसी में क्यों ना काम कर लें। तो प्रॉब्लम इज ऑफ प्राइवेसी. So one of the important aspect is that suppose your entire data is collated at one place, and now suppose you belong to opposition party, right? So now I will know as Aadhaar that where you are transacting, whether you are opening a bank account, from where you withdrew the money, whether you did income tax return or not. So many things, those data will come to one place if you centralize everything, right? And then the government can act as a big brother, and if you want to fix you, they can fix you. Suppose you belong to opposition party, they can fix you if they centralize the data and all. So that's why the concept is a federated data. So Aadhaar has kept very, very minimal information, which is only for Aadhaar generation and authentication service. And if somebody want to use Aadhaar, they will collect Aadhaar from the residents, authenticate, follow their own process. There will be a isolated island, so that this data is not merged for the just purpose of becoming a big brother. And this is the region in a ID system of UK, which they started long back. They collected everything, and they had a single database where it was identity, your tax information, your other eligibility, your medical record, everything was there at one place. On the test of privacy, that was failed, and the court there, the Supreme Court ruled that please destroy all the systems. So entire IT system was destroyed in UK. So we should not repeat that in our country. Otherwise, whatever good thing has been done, use Aadhaar as a platform and have a federated data. If you want to, for example, one of the motivation to collate data would be, for example, I'll just tell you that suppose I have a ration card, and one of the eligibility criteria of ration card that I should be poor. That means my annual income should be less than 5 lakh. So how do I check that my income is 5 lakhs? I need to check in the income tax data, that whether I have filled up uh, income tax return, whether my return is more than 5 lakh. If more than 5 lakh, then my ration card will get cancelled. That is the motivation to centralize database. But what can be done in a better way, that suppose you want to check my eligibility, uh, whether I have income less than 5 lakh or not. So I can develop an API just like Aadhaar authentication with, I hope, am I audible? My light gone, so I just want to check whether I'm audible.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay, fine. So suppose what so the better solution is that the income tax opens an API, and the food department send just one information, that this is the Aadhaar number, just tell me whether its income is less than 5 lakh or not. Answer will come yes or no. So even I don't need how much income he had. If it is more than 5 lakh and it has come the answer yes, no, then you can cancel the data. So without centralizing a database, your purpose can be solved. Your motivation behind collating the data can actually be solved. This has not happened yet, Vinayak, but that is what at Aadhaar we had been suggesting, that in case you want to take some data of some person from other database, nowadays the API concept is very, very prominent. You can do that. For example, if you look at the UPI app is nothing but API gets connected. Even the Google is able to use your banking services. Even any party can be, of course, with certain eligibility, they are able to offer the UPI facility. So we should look at that kind of architecture instead of collating all the data together. Hope I answered your question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Sir, I have one question. Sir, what kind of organization UIDAI? Government, organization, public sector, what it is?
So basically, it is just like for example, the election commission, right? So election commission is created based on an act of the parliament, right? So today Aadhaar is also, there is an Aadhaar Act, and that provides creation of UIDAI. So per se UIDAI is a autonomous body, but part of government, in the sense, just like election commission is a government body, UIDAI is also a government body, right? That is 2016 onwards. Prior to that, when the law was not in place, it was part of the Niti Aayog. It was a office of Niti Aayog. So when it was created initially, we were office, just like DOT is office of Minister of Communication, the Aadhaar was attached office of Niti Aayog, that time Planning Commission. Later on, it was part of MeitY, Ministry of IT and Communication. It was transferred to MeitY. And when the act came into place, it becomes an autonomous body. Of course, every autonomous body is also attached to an office, so they are attached to MeitY, Ministry of IT in that sense.
And sir, one more question: the servers in which UIDAI डेटा जिस सर्वर में रखती है वो सर्वर बिलोंग करती है UIDAI को या वो गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया के सर्वर्स ऑन रेंट लेती है या किसी प्राइवेट बॉडीज के सर्वर्स को ऑन रेंट लेती है?
So if you talk about today, so UIDAI has got 2 data center, captive data center, in the sense that they have developed it and they are running it. One is at Bangalore, another is at Manesar, right? That is a state-of-art database. So as I explained you that how much transactions for a single enrollment happens. So if you calculate 125 crore into 12 biometrics, and one enrollment will have 12 such biometrics into 12. That much transaction happens for deduplicating one Aadhaar. At one point of time, they used to enroll 20 lakh. So millions and billions of transactions, and of transaction I told you every day 3 crore transactions are happening. So only for deduplication purpose, UIDAI had 6,000 servers to compute that, because if you're not able to compute, there will be a backlog, right? So that's a very huge compute they have at the data center, one at Manesar and one at Bangalore, and it is owned by UIDAI. It's a government of India because the entire project is funded by government of India. It's a government of India kind of course it's an autonomous body, but it's purely government of India property. Initially, when they started in 2009, they in fact hired a data center and started it, but they started building their own data center and the entire data operation was shifted. So at that point of time, they had taken one data center in Bangalore from Airtel and one data center in Greater Noida from some company, right, to start with, and then they shifted these data center to their captive data center finally.
Yes.
So we have already crossed time, so quickly let me finish it and then give me 10 minutes more. Is it okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Right. So as I explained, so how Aadhaar is being used? One is that Aadhaar is being used as an identifier, in the sense that every database they will also make a field of Aadhaar and they will use for deduplication, and they will remove all those fake and duplicate, so government saves out of that. And second is that regular use, in the sense that when you want to avail, say, Rasan, every month you go and authenticate yourself. So this is one time database clearing, and this is every time you collect the benefit, you transact, just like attendance or just like Rasan. And there is a cash transfer. I mean, the benefit of the cash is transferred directly to the beneficiary. So then you use the Aadhaar ABP, Aadhaar payment bridge platform, which I talked about. And sometime when you transfer the things in a kind, just like PDS, you do authenticate. So that is also a conditional use. So one is using the ABP, other is using the auth. And I'll show you this figure that how many schemes. This is slightly big, so slightly old data. I'll show you the current one from their websites. There is a website of Government of India called dbtbharat.com. I have opened that. This is the dbtbharat.com. Just look at this one. So this is this year figure. So it says that this year total direct benefit transfer, mostly using Aadhaar, they have done 5,43,000 crores of rupees. So mainly these are in the COVID period. They have transferred cash to Kisan Nidhi and all those LPG Ujjwala scheme. And total number of transactions, this is in terms of amount, 576 crore transactions. And how many schemes? There are 320 scheme, 54 ministry involved, and then the estimated saving is 1 crore 78,000 crore. As I saying that government is saving when they are using Aadhaar for DBT, and those savings are to the tune of total cumulative savings are 1,78,000 crore, right? So can anybody of you guess that how much investment we have done in Aadhaar, how much cost so far we have incurred? Can somebody guess? Rupees or
Sir, 20.
no, I think you are more. Anybody else? So let me tell you that it was only so far about 12,000 crores of rupees has been spent on capex and opex put together, including salaries of us who work there. And the saving you see, it is 1,78,000. So whatever was spent has already been kind of uh, 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 I mean, return on investment has already come in the first year. I mean, once we were stable state, in a few years we got all return, and now all those benefits are being accrued. Okay, so let me, and what are the major scheme, which is PAHAL, that is LPG, PDS, Rasan, Fertilizer, Manrega, Scholarship, and National Social Assistance Program, where they give pension and all to the old days. And this benefit which I said government has accrued, this is an old one, 170 crore, 1,70,000 crore I have written, whereas it is 178 now, 1,78,000 crores. And scheme wise data is also given on the website, you can go through. Now, there's a very interesting thing that Aadhaar, how it becomes very helpful in the difficult time. So, this is Chennai flood, if you recall. During the Chennai flood, entire Chennai was closed long back. And there the micro ATM, the handheld device I talked about, that came handy. So, bank ATMs were closed and all. So, these fellows, I mean, they went to places and with a handheld device and people were able to withdraw money. So, at that point of time, uh, uh, 12,000 residents withdrew about 4 crore in a day or two. So that came handy. So that is Aadhaar helps in difficult time. Similarly, if you look at the COVID period, I also discussed that. So the usual transaction was in a month about 200 million, that is 20 crore. During March 20, when lockdown started, this AEPS transaction increased because the ATMs were closed. So initially it was closed, later on, I mean, they tried to fill it up. So it went to 400 million transaction in a month, and it continued for a few months, and then again after lockdown period was over, it again came to stable state. And AEPS actually overdid the ATM transaction and digital payment transaction during the COVID-19 lockdown of 2020. So COVID, I'm just putting one of the news item that during that time, number of transaction on APS, those handheld device, I mean, outdid ATM, digital payment transaction, etc. So this comes very handy during the difficult times, right? And now one more interesting thing which happened is the reuniting the missing children. So many of the children who goes missing, they are not traced. So because of the Aadhaar, many of them were reunited. And see, just see this figure, that this is one of the study that 180 children go missing in India every day, and most may never be found. So this is a study in Huffington Post. And Delhi, you see that 22,000 children went missing in the last 3 years, and 9,000 still untraced. So this is a news item which we have captured. But with Aadhaar, many of these children, and normally the children are either they are not able to speak or mentally unstable, they are not able to tell their address and parents, and they are lodged into some or other anathalaya or the home run by government and NGO. So now when Aadhaar team goes for enroll them on an introducer base, what we find is that they already have Aadhaar, and we dug out that older Aadhaar and see their address and mobile number of their parents, and we are able to contact, and then people are kind of able to meet after so many years, right? After 5 years, 10 years, they're able to meet. So there are so many stories of such reuniting missing children. So this is a kind of a byproduct of Aadhaar, which is giving happiness to many of the people. And then there are so many stories in the newspaper that अंगूठा लगवाकर आधार कार्ड से खोजा, रोगी के नाम का पता, आधार में हेल्प ट्रेस मिसिंग किड्स, वाह आधार बच्चे को मिल गया बिछड़ा परिवार, kind of lot of story came into the newspaper. There was a person who was stressed in Raebareli area, and he was not able to tell his location because he was not able to speak, mentally unstable. With Aadhaar, when he was traced, he was found that he was a millionaire in some South India, and because he was mentally unstable, he somehow came to Raebareli. So a lot of help came using Aadhaar. So it's not only children but even the adult. So with this, I'm over with my slides. Maybe in the last I should open the floor for any question, and then we close it. So any question or somebody want to summarize the lesson learned?
Sir, I have a doubt.
हाँ Kushal.
Sir, the data that is collected by UIDAI, is there any authority that is cross-verifying that UIDAI is not misusing the data?
UIDAI is not
misusing the data.
So there is an audit. You're right. There is an audit by some agencies, and there are certain processes in place which makes it difficult for any person to misuse the data. For example, if you go to Aadhaar data center and look at their security, how tier of security are there to enter into the database. I mean, so they have they call it DMZ, demilitarized zone, militarized zone, and all, and there is a security aspect involved. So entry itself, physical security itself is a challenge. Then you have security related to IT systems and all. So even you cannot access a data. Even within Aadhaar, I cannot access the data, right? When I was in Aadhaar, I had access to some data which is required for my duty, but I didn't had any data. And in case some data is to be retrieved, there is a IT process which has to be followed, and there is a approval process which has to be followed. So there are processes in place to protect the data. And there is, of course, so for example, even as I said, there are layers of security which takes care of that, and there is third party security. I mean, look after. So they call it so there is one layer which is handled by some agency, and of course other agencies have done some audit from time to time. When I'm saying other agency, or the concerned agency of our country.
Sir, and that audit is internal or by an external agency?
Both. Internal is already there. Internal means there are a lot of internal audit which keeps on going as per the process. There are certain external in the sense that within Government of India, from Government of India, there are certain agency who comes and does the audit, and they also suggest some more precaution which gets implemented.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So okay, let me finally ask few of you the lesson learned. If some of you can summarize, it will be good. So maybe Asutosh, maybe Poonam has not spoken once. So Poonam, you can open your mic and try to summarize.
Yes, sir. Sir, on behalf of all the trainees, I also would like to thank you for taking this lecture on project management. As you explained how the project management impacted the Aadhaar card project, so we learned how the project management plays important role, as you told in the starting of the slide, that it minimizes the resources and maximizes the result. So by giving this project management example, we explain what is the role of project management in the enrollment and authentication, and the Aadhaar card impact of the Aadhaar card is increased because the implementation is so good. So, and also thank you, sir, for giving all the relevant and practical examples, as it helped us to understand the topic. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Poonam, and thank you all. Shall we close?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.